And we are live.
I think so, Nick. Another one.
Good to see you again, Matt. Thank you for having us out to the CBTS studios today. Looking forward to this discussion about Microsoft Teams Voice.
Yep, quite a bit to talk about. I'm excited
There is.
too.
There's a lot to unpack here. Before we get started, let's do some quick intros. So I'll start.
Sure.
My name's Nick Enger. I'm the CTO at Advanced Technology Consulting, ATC for short, out of Liberty Township, Ohio. Been doing this 18 years now. I've known Matt for 15 of those years. Yep. My role is a little unique in the sense that I'm responsible for our entire technology stack internally at ATC, but externally, I have a team of consultants that are working with clients all across the country, hundreds of clients all across the country, working with great vendors like CBTS.
Thank you.
In finding the right solutions for their requirements. Matt Douglas here with me, senior engineer at CBTS, has been doing this with CBTS for how long?
15 years. I actually started in 2008. So yeah, about 15 years. I had an ISP in Indianapolis about 10 years before that and sold it into Cincinnati Bell. So I've had a variety of roles here at CBTS. I now run our solutions engineering group. So I and my sales engineers, when you guys have an opportunity where you think CBTS might fit, then we come in and see if we can help there. So
you're consulting with hundreds of organizations outside of just ATC's clients, hundreds of organizations all across.
We do this all across the country, all across the United States, Canada. We deliver a lot of these solutions globally even. This is doing Teams for us is right in our wheelhouse. So I'm excited to talk about it today.
Great. Well, thank you again for inviting us out to this studio.
Yep.
We love doing this. The green screen and all of this, the lights, it's
our big producer, Lance. You can't see him, but Lance builds all this and puts it together for us. So yeah.
So I want to thank everybody for joining us. If you have questions along the way, please put them into the chat within LinkedIn, and Lance will be inserting some of those questions along the way. A little bit about Advanced Technology Consulting. We're a digital transformation consulting agency and professional services firm. We have 4 core areas that we focus in on: voice, network, cloud, and security. What's important to know about ATC is we're not beholden to any single vendor. It's all about finding the right solution for the client. We have 400 different vendors in our marketplace that we have available to us at any time when we see the opportunity for that with the client. What we're talking about within ATC's 4 core areas is a bunch of different solutions. So at the end of the day, we are the expertise that comes to the table to understand what you've invested in along the way, and then ultimately pair you with the exact right solution.
What I love about that too, I'll comment, Nick, is that you guys aren't beholden to any one vendor. I mean, we represent CBTS and we have a lot of solutions, we're going to talk about here today. But I love your guys' approach. I'm sometimes a little envious of being on your side, really, but being able to have so many different choices to, when you meet with a customer, what are the particular business outcomes? And you've got a lot of different vendors or solutions you can bring to the table. So I sometimes get a little jealous of that.
Yeah, it allows for us to identify the exact right solution for their requirements. And I think that's difficult to do because the technology is changing faster and faster, and the vendors are expanding. The number of vendors are expanding faster and faster.
And the portfolio is expanding. I mean, our portfolio over the last 5 years is probably 3 times what it was 5 years ago. So,
I would agree with that. So the way ATC goes about our consulting practice is to ultimately get as close to the client as we possibly can. And the way we do that is through a 23-year proven process of audit and assessment, getting to know the client really, really well. And once we do that, we're able to create these roadmaps and these strategies around our 4 core areas: voice, network, cloud, and security. So when we do that, oftentimes it's not just a single point solution that we're inserting into an environment. It's a holistic view of the client and then looking at a 1, 3, and 5-year roadmap, making sure that we're maximizing the investments that we have already made, but ultimately coming up with that 5-year strategy of what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, you got to fit the business outcomes. The business outcomes you're going towards have got to use the applicable existing solutions they've got today, along with new solutions to build a long-term plan. And so we agreed too, on the CBTS side, we're going to be talking on Teams about how that migration plan of moving from a common PBX or a customer premise PBX or maybe even another UCaaS platform to Teams assessment, where you are today, what are these flows? We're going to talk quite a bit about it. So again, that's your guys' approach, and our approach is really about what are the business outcomes somebody's trying to get to, assessing where they are today, and how might we fit or bring some new solutions to get there. So that's why we love working with you guys.
I was going to say the same thing. It's very complementary where we're following the same process, even though you happen to be on the vendor side, ultimately with the best interest of the client at heart.
We'll even walk away from a deal if we're not the right fit. We want to be a long-term partner to companies like yourselves, and we can't be all things to all people.
I think clients appreciate that.
Oh, yeah.
They appreciate the sense that, hey, if we're not the right fit, we're going to say it. And we appreciate that as consultants, but our clients also do.
Sure.
So we mentioned this a little bit earlier. The technology landscape is changing faster and faster. This is Gartner's emerging technology roadmap. Each of these circles represent different technologies as it relates to 2021, 2022, 2023, and beyond of what's important to the enterprise. And there's different, if you look on the outside of this diagram, it has network, it has security, a digital workplace, IT automation, storage and database, so on and so forth. Today's discussion is surrounding digital workplace. Yep. We are specifically honing in on the unified communication space, the collaboration space, everything encompassing of that workspace. And today's specific discussion is Microsoft Teams and the absolute explosion that it's had
the complete
since 2017.
Yep.
And it has. It's when Microsoft started to roll this out, it was almost as if people didn't understand it. And then 2020 hit.
Yep.
And 2020 absolutely exploded as people went to work from home. They had a way to communicate by not walking to somebody's desk or talking to them at the water cooler.
Yep.
And you can see some of that growth through this diagram, and it hasn't stopped, which is amazing. It hasn't slowed down since 2020, and it only seems to be increasing.
It's completely changed the paradigm. I pull my cell phone out all the time, right? Because I used to do 50, 60, 70% of my business on my desk phone or cell phone. And it's probably 10% of my business now on some kind of PSTN connectivity. We are all in collaborative sessions, and that's what's driven this whole move to, can Microsoft Teams now also be my PBX? And that's what we want to explore here. So it's been a complete paradigm shift and changed the way all of us work, even when we're in the office.
Agreed. Yep. Agreed. And I don't see it slowing down. And as this Microsoft Teams discussion has evolved, there was discussions back in 2020 we were having with clients, and they didn't really understand, can I make this my phone system? Where do these UCaaS vendors play into this? I have this legacy on-prem PBX that I can't use anymore as my workforce is working remotely. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of discussions surrounding Microsoft Teams, and then it just got more and more complicated. Microsoft has solved some of that over the past couple of years, and I think it's easier,
not all
but
of it.
It's still complicated.
There are still challenges there. Yeah, exactly. It's still you have to look at the capabilities of that Teams voice platform. What parts fit? What parts might you have to, either continue using a customer premise system or other parts of a UCaaS cloud? We're going to talk about that. But this shift, when you talk about moving to Teams, how are you making sure all of the business outcomes and call flows and workloads you had before are going to be working in this new environment? That's a big part of the consulting both of our groups do.
Yes, and I think it's matured to the point where we can meet the client where they need to be met.
Yes.
And I think that's important because not the enterprise. The enterprise can't handle big shifts, moving everything in a big bang. So how can we leverage that where certain organizations might stay a legacy PBX, but also want to leverage
portions of it for a while?
Exactly.
Yep.
And we'll talk more about how those pieces and parts fit together. But why do people move to Microsoft Teams as a PBX? Like what are the features and functionality? Obviously, that a lot of folks think it's the easy button. Like, well, I already leverage Microsoft Teams within my environment. I'll just turn on the phone system piece. That's not entirely accurate.
It isn't. And also, you tell me about this, but I think the paradigm shift has happened too, or the value proposition shift. You and I have been selling voice solutions for a long time, back to even selling some small customer premise phone systems, right?
Yeah.
When you sold a phone system to a company 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, we always worried about this whole stack of features. Does this phone system do this? Does it do that? Does it do that? this paradigm has changed to us doing so much of our work in collaborative sessions, whether it's Teams, WebEx, Zoom, you name it, Google Meets, whatever. That shift now has people have said, you know what? I'm not even, is the Teams PBX going to be good enough for me to run my business? It used to be, I bought this PBX and every feature had to be perfect and more than what I had before. And now it's like, oh, wait a minute, I've lost the battle. We are all moving to Microsoft. Teams is my environment. How do I make the Teams PBX work? And to that end, at least our experience with customers is you need some consulting. You need to figure out, what are those workloads? Where are people working? Where are they working from home, hybrid, working from home and office? And what are those things and challenges we might have to migrate? So, and at the same point too, you still need a service provider. Yes, technically you can go to Microsoft and you can buy a dial plan from Microsoft, but generally speaking, customers today aren't wanting to trust Microsoft to be their 911 provider and to be their telephone provider.
Right.
They're going to trust them to provide that call control in the cloud, the Microsoft Teams experience, both on a phone, a soft phone, my clients, et cetera. But I probably don't want them to be my phone company. And so that's where a lot of service providers like ourselves, CBTS, come in, is that, we are a phone company. We've been a phone company across North America the last 20 years. And so we're delivering local, long distance 911 and delivering that along with executing that on the customer's Teams platform. But there's a lot of consulting that needs to be done. And there's sometimes even different connections. You mentioned earlier, we've got customers today, like a particular hospital we're working on right now with 20,000 seats, that when we got to them, this goes back about 2 years ago, they said, we're moving everything to Microsoft Teams.
Yeah.
And we're like, no, you're not. You can't do that. Yes, we're moving everything Teams. So we met with them for like 6 months and explained, no, Microsoft Teams doesn't do local survivability well still. You can't be, if you lost all connectivity in a hospital, you need to have all the auto attendants and hunt groups working. Well, Microsoft Teams can't do that if you lost all connectivity. They've got high density analog lines in a hospital, a lot of analog lines to fax machines, to rooms, things like that, but Teams doesn't do that well, right? Nurses' stations need multiple key line appearances that you can't do inside of Teams. So we met with them. This goes back, as I mentioned, like 2 years ago. Met with them for a while, and they kicked us out. You guys don't know what you're talking about. They brought 8x8 in. 8x8 worked with them for about 3 months till they kicked 8x8 out and brought us back in and said, okay, now we get your point.
Yeah.
And what we've ended up in this particular installation is about 65% of the workloads are completely on Teams, right? Controlled by our PSTN, our 911 and dial tone. About 35% of the workloads are sitting then on our UCaaS platform for local survivability and analog lines. And we've even built then SIP trunks out of that core to Twilio because they're using Twilio for their contact center. Well, that kind of integration between platforms, you just can't get done inside of a Microsoft dial plan.
I love that talk track. That's exactly what we've experienced across the board. What we've found highly impactful for the client is that third party going through and actually evaluating all of the workloads on the front end to understand the call flows, understand what the drivers are of each of the individual businesses, and then ultimately help design and architect what you just talked about. Because it's very complicated and most clients aren't savvy enough to be able to design it the way that makes sense for the vendors as well as all the third parties that have to integrate into it.
Yeah, even in smaller environments, let's say it's a couple location, 500 person firm. They might have some overhead paging. They might have some gates that need to be opened, doors that need to be opened.
Any analog device in that environment.
Those things just don't work quite the way they should yet in Teams. They'll get there. And so that kind of consulting, okay, what do you do with those use cases? That's a big part of what we do. Absolutely.
Exactly right.
Hey, can I jump in and just ask, speak directly to the healthcare providers out there? Can we stop putting analog in patient beds? That'd be really great for us.
I'm not sure that's going to work in the near term anyway, Lance. Yes, we've tried to present that, but you're right. We can pitch that.
So we referenced a little bit earlier about the process of which we evaluate the current environment for the client, but ultimately landing on the solution. Why don't you talk through the CBTS model? ATC's model mirrors it pretty closely. So I like the fact that you guys have this documented the way you do.
Yep, absolutely. So it does start with kind of this careful discovery, right? A discovery with the customer of what they're trying to accomplish. What are the business outcomes or business goals they've got? what even emotional baggage they got to deal with. Because, when you're changing a phone system, changing a culture, even a company of 500 or 1,000 employees, there's things you need to think about, right? How's the organization going to take this? So the first thing we want to do is come in and do a discovery with the customer, understand what they're trying to accomplish, but then start to do an assessment, right? That assessment literally is about looking at their existing call flows, right? Is their network ready? What are their existing call flows? Is the network ready? What devices do they want to use? Kind of what's all entailed with a possible migration plan? Because in the end, you'll see in this diagram here, kind of sections 3, 4, and 5, there's a whole lot of when you move that we can do completely like for like. So number 3 is about, the experience for the end user is going to be the same as it was before. Let's say, I'm in accounts payable or receivable, and I had a telephone on my desk with a DID, and I had voicemail. That's going to be completely like for like. Now, there's then also situations where you move call flows, and it would be maybe like but different, possibly, right? There's going to be some cultural change, some retraining of customers, maybe even some process change around how calls might flow into an area, but they still decide, okay, they want to put it on Teams. So the first 2 are about, Teams is going to work exactly like it did before, or the other one, Teams is going to work, it's just going to be a little bit of change. And the last one there, number 5, is about there are things Teams simply can't do today. Yes. And what are the solutions then? Or either you're going to give up those capabilities. I mean, we've literally had people say, yeah, my old phone system was connected to overhead paging, but we never use it anymore. Well, then we don't care anymore, right? But those things like connecting to overhead paging, connecting to door openers or gate openers, the analog lines, all those needs, the local survivability where applicable, these are all things that can't be done inside of Teams today. So that's the kind of idea of coming in, doing a discovery, an assessment, giving back then a statement of work or a migration plan for how we're going to execute on this, and then execute on it. And even on the executing, it is often a staged thing. I mentioned that hospital. This is going to be a 2 to 2.5 year project to move 20,000 users off old platforms to new platforms, right? And even a company of, maybe 10 locations and 2,000 employees, it's probably going to be a 2 to 4 month process to get every moved over. So you've also got to talk about that migration, what's happening there.
The whole project plan built into it.
Yep.
ATC's model is very similar. We call it the Delta model. You can take a look at it on our website, 4atc.com. It's right there on our website. Very similar in design to the CBTS one that we just reviewed. One thing that I would add on the front end, oftentimes when we're looking at the user base, we try to profile those users into certain categories. Where are they going to live? You mentioned, are they going to live within the Teams environment? We've had scenarios where certain users are in Teams environment, certain users are actually living within their CRM environment, that we've actually enabled voice within their CRM platform or their ticketing solution. So it's not going to necessarily be defined saying that, hey, you're going to use a Microsoft Teams endpoint or a Microsoft Teams soft client, but we're going to define it as, where does that end user need to live? And then we're going to enable them. So I think what's important is meet those end users where they're at and where they need to be, because a non-technical user that's used to having a phone on a desk might not be ready to move to a soft phone.
Sure.
So meeting the end users where they need to be. And then on the backside, you hit it on the head. Building that project plan where you have a clearly defined milestones and when this project's going to be implemented. We help our clients with that all the way down to training of the users and deploying phones on desks.
So you mentioned soft phones and users on desks. Tell me if this is your experience. When you went back pre-COVID, people still expected a telephone on my desk.
Mainly in the Midwest, but yes.
Okay, that's probably fair.
Yeah.
That's probably fair.
Mainly in the Midwest, but yes. I feel through the pandemic, everyone got more technical. My grandma has the ability to stand up a Zoom.
Yep. So does my mother. She's 86. You're absolutely right. Yep. But that paradigm's shifted.
It is definitely.
So it's like we're dealing with a county in Virginia right now. 4,000 seats. We're moving them completely to Teams. They have 4,000 Cisco phones. We're probably going to end up with about 1,000 phones, which to me is just incredible because that would have never happened before COVID, before this mass adoption of these collaboration tools, of Teams as a client, as getting used to soft phones, those kinds of things. So that paradigm has shifted as well. Now, we still do have customers that want to use physical phones. And so we'll have that conversation of, okay, what phones today that I own might I be able to use in Teams. And Teams does now have a new SIP gateway that we can reuse some old phones, right? If the SIP stacks properly, you can reuse them. And you can get most of the features, but when more and more people, even when they have a Teams device, want that Teams device to be able to show me a calendar events, to give me alerts coming out of Teams environments, et cetera. So there even is a discussion when you're talking about reusing phones of, is it worth doing that, or am I better off now going to new Teams certified devices where applicable, where somebody still wants a handset? But that's a conversation, again, we'll go through. But I'm just continually amazed about how users today in the new UCaaS paradigm, even when we're selling WebEx calling, by the way, even when people say, no, I'm not ready to move to Teams, I want to stay on a Cisco WebEx calling, the vast majority of users are moving to soft phones because this whole COVID collaboration experience is now, okay, you're right, I can trust it. Because before, people were just scared about it.
Yeah.
I can't trust it. The voice quality is not going to be there.
We had a question come in, guys, real quick. I hate to interrupt you. I was trying to find a spot. You guys are going back.
We're at it, man.
Yeah, you're at it. Have you seen an increase, in addition to COVID, have you seen an increase in transitions to Teams or other UCaaS providers since FCC push to end POTS lines?
Say again, ask the question again.
Since the FCC, since the push to end POTS lines, have we seen an increase in Teams migrations? Does that have anything to do with it? Is it mostly in COVID, or is some of that as well?
There's a push in the migration to UCaaS and Microsoft Teams in general. The POTS regulations that have come out, that they've ended POTS in general, or at least put a timeline on them. I don't see it being exactly the demand that's driving it. I think that there's already been a demand for it. I think the solve or the use case behind the POTS replacement is a little bit different.
Yeah, although I do think getting rid of copper, POTS lines, getting rid of PRIs in the network, which is happening across the board with ILEX, particularly on the PRI side. Like, we have another hospital that we're doing right now that still, believe it or not, has 120 PRIs. And they basically finally realized we have to get off these because they're going to go end of tariff. They're going to be ridiculously expensive, and we've got to move. So that PRI made them move into looking at UCaaS and Teams.
Evaluation.
Yeah.
Evaluation.
But to your point on the POTS problem, there still are use cases where you need to have an analog handoff to an elevator, to even people keep fax machines around. And the POTS replacement is about POTS in a box. It's about putting a modem, typically a wireless card in there, and delivering a VoIP-based POTS service. But it is that the POTS, to your question, Lance, the POTS and PRI, the new world is forcing even the old world organizations like healthcare to say, okay, it's time. I'm going to have to move. It's inevitable.
I would agree with that. It's time to evaluate.
Yeah.
So Microsoft has a couple different flavors of the way they go about this. And I feel like this is an evolving conversation because at the beginning of it, it was, hey, you hit the E5 license, you put the calling plan in there, and then add dial tone.
And just trust Microsoft.
And just trust Microsoft and their support, and we all love them.
Yep.
But now that's kind of shifted, and I feel it's almost productized way more advanced than I ever thought they would get, in the sense that they're going to meet the client where they want to be met, where the larger organizations, if they want to leverage SIP trunking and put in an SBC and handle it on their own, you can do that. Or if you want a more holistic solution, that they've created this portfolio of vendors that they've partnered with, them being Microsoft, that allows the likes of CBTS to come in and be a part of the ecosystem, ultimately providing the dial tone, the calling plans, the PBX functionality behind the scenes, but ultimately to the end user being transparent in Microsoft Teams.
Yes. And are you familiar on the data side with a company called Megaport? It's connected to all sorts of data centers, right, to Azure, AWS. They talk about being a clearinghouse to get your data wherever you want to get. That's really what CBTS does on the voice side. Because if you think about it, when I've got a base of users, let's call it 2,000 users or more on a PBX, let's say, I want to move to Teams. I'm also deploying maybe some cloud contact center, because that's typically where we have mentioned contact center, but that's typically where it's going. We need to talk about that because Teams doesn't really have a contact center solution today. But the need is really to be able to connect to both customer premise and the Teams environment while you do that migration. So most of our big migrations, we're setting up SIP trunking down to that customer premise PBX, porting all those numbers so we got control. So now when we move users, we don't have a porting event. We can move them over 1 at a time, 10 at a time, 100 at a time. If we got a problem, we can move them back. Even during that transition, we can enable extension-to-extension dialing because, believe it or not, extensions still are important to people. Now, when you move to Teams, that goes away because everybody's in my directory.
Depending, right?
Well,
Depending
yeah.
on the deployment.
Yeah. So one of the value propositions, I think, of the better service providers, and I'd like to think we're one of them, is our ability then to be able to take our core network, kind of be a megaport of voice and be able to connect to existing instances, new instances of contact center, move into Teams, and having that control, organized control of that migration process. I think that's a pretty big deal.
I like the way you guys go about that.
And you just can't do that with a calling plan. Now, you see Direct Route and Operator Connect up there. Generally speaking, most everybody's going on Operator Connect, but we have had some customers that have some specific routing needs that we want to use Direct Route off individual SBC interfaces in our core, multiple data centers, et cetera. But there have been some times with some of the bigger, more complicated environments where we want to build our own Direct Route and our own kind of routing domain as opposed to using our Operator Connect. But both of those are available to us, and we are one of those first groups of service providers on the Operator Connect side.
Yeah, I remember it was a very small group, and your name was listed.
Oh yeah,
and it's expanded more recently, but I think that's a testament to the job well done of CBTS.
It's a major focus of ours. It always has been, absolutely. The other thing about Operator Connect too, or Direct Route, it depends what customers want to buy too, right? On the Operator Connect side, technically speaking, you can just buy telephone numbers and you build everything on your own in the tenant, you deploy it. It's not our problem. Our job's to deliver a dial tone or a telephone number to your front door and you make Teams work. A whole other group of customers, probably 60% of our customers are saying, no, we want you to actually design all those call flows in Microsoft and the tenant. We want you to do moves, adds, and changes for us day 2 as well. So even when you look at these dialing plans, there's kind of different parts and pieces about, is it kind of just dial tone, partially managed, fully managed? Do you need some professional services? That's the kind of expertise that CBTS brings to the market.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that because we haven't really touched on support and day 2 support. But just so we're clear, the Operator Connect is the most holistic product that's ultimately going to provide you that full PBX functionality, but also provide you that day 2 support for the moves, adds, changes, deletions, or just account maintenance. With ATC and CBTS, it's kind of the best of both worlds where we collaborate together, making sure that we are absolutely in sync with that customer.
Making sure we do our job right, and we're not perfect. We make mistakes, and you'll find them and make sure they get solved. So, yep.
Hey, guys, I had another question come in.
Yes, sir.
You talked about call center a few minutes ago, and this person sent us a question around what is your experience using Teams as a contact center or integrating with a third-party CCaaS provider such as NICE, Five9, Genesys, et cetera?
No, it's a great question. So Teams has call queuing capabilities. So one of the things we do consult, I'm sure you guys have done the same thing, is you try and understand where did somebody use a hunt group, where a phone call comes in and I'm ringing 5 phones. Or does somebody use a small contact center where I'm ringing those 5 phones? If nobody answers, I'm going to put them on hold and give a message. But no big reporting needs or agents don't need to log in and off. Those things can be done in Teams. We can build any kind of hunt groups. We can build auto attendants. We can build, even small contact, or they call them queues in Microsoft Teams.
The basic PBX function.
Yes. But the moment somebody needs an agent, client, they need detailed reporting, it needs to be omni-channel, chat, email, these kinds of things, then absolutely they're going to have to move to some other contact center platform, of which 95% of that is now all cloud-based, whether it's NICE, whether it's Genesys, et cetera. In our portfolio, we happen to have WebEx Contact Center, Five9, and then we also have our own product called CX Sync that actually links very interestingly into Teams at about half the cost of WebEx Call-In or Five9. But the point being there, and that was kind of a blatant pitch, but the point being there is that's part of what we want to do in consulting, is find out, all right, what are you doing with your contact centers today? How is it being served out of your PBX or your existing UCaaS provider? Where do you want to go in the future? because more and more of these platforms as well are connecting into the Teams API to be able to show presence, to be able to get call status, et cetera. And that's a big thing because Teams is not going to solve contact center in the near future, not the way the nicest Genesis 5.9s of the world can.
And I would dovetail on that. Almost all of our conversations isn't just Microsoft Teams. It's Microsoft Teams plus contact center, plus
probably about
CRM,
60, 70% of my
ticketing.
conversations. Yep.
Yeah. So it's, I think that's where the digital transformation really comes into play is it's not just a lift and shift to Microsoft Teams. It's all the different integrations that you need to account for and all of the analog devices and all of the different pieces and parts that go into the whole.
Yep.
That's where it gets complicated. That's where that third-party consultant makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Even analytics. I don't know if we've got a slide. I forget on this, but even on the analytics side, Microsoft Teams is not the strongest on analytics. You've got to be able to run Power BI, and it's not obvious necessarily in that interface today. So carriers like ourselves have layered on additional enhanced reporting modules at very reasonable rates that can give you the kind of tools that you expect in the past, where you can build ad hoc reports, easily, where you can schedule those reports to come to you. So even reporting and analytics is something that still needs to oftentimes be augmented in Microsoft Teams. Now, sometimes it doesn't. I think you and I, we were prepping for this meeting, and we talked about, if I walk into a 150, professional services organization, accountants or lawyers, something like that, well, usually automated attendance, DIDs, voicemail, some small hunt groups.
Right.
You're probably going to handle all that. We don't have a lot of deep discovery. But the moment I walk into an organization that's got distribution and technical support and customer-facing support, how are they doing it today? Those are things you got to start to delve into.
I think it's starting to come down market into that 150 user environment where they're wanting those tools. Where they're wanting to see that visibility. They're wanting to understand the analytics behind who's doing what within the environment.
No, that's fair.
Especially as it relates to integrating into that CRM. Well, how often are they taking phone calls? There's a lot of...
no, that's a good point. Yeah,
when you're in that work from home environment, they want more visibility. They don't want less, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So as we talk about this, I hear this often is, well, we're just going to go with Microsoft Teams. It's already included. It's going to be less expensive than what I am paying today for my PBX. And
not always.
It's an education process, and you have to walk the client through it of like, here's what you would be spending with Microsoft, or here's what you are spending with Microsoft. Here's what you're spending with your telecom vendor, your PBX support vendor, all of these different pieces and parts that make up your current environment. And then going forward, what is it going to look like in that future state?
No.
So are you seeing a cost savings that I'm not seeing?
Not usually. So
maybe efficiency gains.
It's more about, I pulled my cell phone out again last time. What I do? Oh, it's here. I pull out. I can't do business without the cell phone now. I can't do business without Microsoft Teams. I'm going to be paying somebody $80 a month till I die, and they'll bury this with me, right? So I think in Teams, in a lot of ways, we have made the shift now that I have to have a collaborative environment. I have to have an environment that I have team spaces with both internal members and external customers, spaces to share files and things. I've got to have instant messaging and presence. I've got to be able to hold meetings. In Microsoft then, now if we're going to turn into a PBX, I've got to figure out, do I have E5 license? Do I have E3? Do I need to have some add-on voice stuff? So at some point, I got to pay Microsoft for the ability to build the PBX. Then I got to get PSTN connectivity. I got to get Operator Connect. I got to get some telephone numbers behind it. So usually it is not about saving money. And in fact, I think in a lot of ways, this is, at least my experience, this is almost the biggest emotional decision I've seen people make, that it's like, we're just moving the Teams. I have no choice. I'm paying per user for everything else in my environment. I have to get this PBX out of here. I have to be able to have the seamless experience of my users, whether they're working in the office or home. And it comes with a cost. Microsoft's got to take their chunk. Everybody's going to take their little piece. But it's the world. It's the world we're moving in. So I think you're right in that you do have to remind people that they had a cost of ownership, of maintenance, of maintaining, of the server room, all those things. And that should be taken in effect a total cost of ownership. But the reason you kind of see me smile or hesitate is that I don't think it isn't really about saving a whole bunch of money. It's about bringing a whole bunch of different value in that just has to be there.
I would agree. And consolidation of technologies into one collaboration platform.
Well, we're seeing the same thing, by the way, on the security side. People never thought about Microsoft and security, but Microsoft came in with a collaboration tool. We're now moving into the PBX era. They're moving the voice over to Microsoft Teams, and now they're doing such a good job with their device management, with their Defender tool and security. We're seeing the same movement to people saying, no,
I think we did this talk track already. We already presented on that.
That's right.
And that's still an evolving conversation.
Oh, yeah,
the managed detection and response space.
Yep.
So what's missing? We talked a little bit about this already, the limited advanced PBX functionality. We talked about analytics, the contact center, the integration pieces within the Microsoft Teams environment isn't inherently available. So leveraging somebody like CBTS, an Operator Connect preferred vendor, that's the way to go about this. And we've had multiple use cases across the U.S. and globally of how to leverage an Operator Connect environment into more complicated environments, such as getting dial tone in India. That's more complicated.
Oh, no, absolutely. You got, and in fact, we even, like CBTS, we don't have a telephone network in India. We don't have a telephone network in EU. But what we do have is arrangements with other Operator Connect providers so that we can even deliver a holistic approach for a global customer and even manage parts of other dial tone that we might use in Europe or APAC or something like that. So you're absolutely right that you got to figure out, particularly if you're global, where you're going to get dial tone from, because you're not getting it locally anymore. It's got to come from the cloud. So yeah, these questions you see on the screen of what, again, we go back to the old world when I was maybe on Avaya and I'm moving to Cisco, or I'm on Cisco and I'm moving to ShoreTel. Those feature stacks were pretty similar. Mm-hmm. We already kind of knew that if you did it in Cisco or ShoreTel, I could do it over here in Avaya, or whatever, vice versa. That's not the case in Teams. We're moving to Teams voice for all the right reasons, but they still better identify, can we do those things? Back to that chart of, can I do like for like for different, but I can absorb the change, or no, I got to do something different. The contact center, here's a big thing. It's just not available in Microsoft Teams. So those are the things that when we together engage customers, is doing that assessment, doing that discovery, and putting together a migration plan that takes into account these kinds of things, because they're there.
And Matt, is that a long term? Are they going to have contact center functionality? Do you think they're going to build that, or are they just going to focus on integrations with third parties?
That's an interesting question. I don't know.
I don't know the answer. I haven't seen any roadmap stuff out of Cisco.
I asked the tough questions.
You're a good one, Lance. I doubt that in the near term it's going to be, because you look at the body of intellectual property associated with a Genesis, with a 5.9, with a nice in contact, with our CX Sync product, even kind of more mid-market. That's a lot of intellectual property, that code that they would have to drop in there, and I just don't think that's happening in the near term.
If I were to look in the crystal ball, I think it's going to follow how they've played in the UCaaS space, because at one point I was concerned that Microsoft was going to go dominate the UCaaS space, but they leverage partners, and they have preferred network of partners such as CBTS, but
that's a great point, because
that could be the pathway for them.
They have their APIs today that actually, there are some people who are starting to build contact center solutions. You got to pay the right for the code to run at your desktop. You got to put a server in the cloud or here that is then connecting to their APIs. And some of the 5.9s will do some of that for some things, but there are some people actually trying to even do call control there. It's still nascent. It's still early. But I don't think Microsoft themselves probably in the near term is going to be releasing those kinds of contact center call controls in their cloud. It's going to have to come off of third parties or people who write to that API.
And I just think it's in its infancy.
It's
coming. I think it's going to be that purpose-built integration, and they're going to have their strategic partnerships.
Yep, I think you're right.
So we talked about this already, not to belabor it. The telephone license for the E1 and E3 licensing it's not included within that base license. Yep. You have to add it in. It is included within the E5, but the calling plan is not. So there's a lot of it's a menu here. We're trying to solve for it within the client environment.
And that's some of the consulting we'll provide, is that we've got, Microsoft experts that can come in and take a look at your licensing today.
Correct.
Understand what you're using. Do you want to modify it? Is there a reason, let's say you're all E3, do you just want to buy the voice license, or are you better off going to E5 because now we're going to add some other capabilities on the security side that we want to get into that platform? So those are things we could bring to bear on the Microsoft side too.
So tell me a little bit about how CBTS goes about this. Like, give me the pieces and parts that build into the Microsoft environment.
Sure. First, our core, where we came from, is CBTS, about 25 years old. For some who don't know out there, we're an offshoot of Cincinnati Bell, which is now called Alta Fiber. So we've been a phone company. Like, we were one of the original AT&Ts, and we even stayed our own when AT&T did their whole split. So we've got a rich history of DNA delivering voice reliably, 911, et cetera. CBTS starts about 25 years ago, and as we grow, we then become the CLEC branch, the competitive local exchange carrier branch of Cincinnati Bell. We're a standalone company, but we're now the phone company all through North America. So being a phone company means I have to connect to all the local rate centers, all the 911, et cetera. I've got to be able to reliably deliver local long distance in 911. And we do that for tens of thousands of customers and locations, right? Microsoft Teams then comes around, right? And so now we connect down into Microsoft Teams, right? And so our network is connected to Microsoft Teams, and we're in control of that dial tone, those local long distance and 911. But because we're that clearinghouse for dial tone, nationally, if you would, that's where we have the ability then to build SIP trunks down to a customer premise, either short-term for migration or even long-term, because they're going to keep something down there. Maybe they're going to stay on customer premise contact center that they've been running. It's going to stay there for another 2 years because they've got a contract. We'll just keep SIP trunking there, but have it be part of a custom dial plan. So the fact that we are the phone company, we're responsible for delivering local long-distance 911. We have this nationwide core. We then can connect with Teams for either direct route or operator connect down into local instances, right? Or connect to CCaaS or other environments as well. So it's really, that's part of our secret sauce is, being that kind of programmable central hub for all your dial tone, no matter where that gets to.
Yeah, and you guys have done a fantastic job.
It's where we're headed, absolutely.
It's been evolving through the years.
Oh, it's changed considerably. When you and I met, UCaaS was a miracle. We were having to convince people why they should even move their voice to the cloud. And is VoIP reliable? And nobody asks, is VoIP reliable anymore? Very seldom.
Very seldom, yeah. Lance, any other questions there, sir?
No questions right now,
No questions. Yeah. So we've talked a lot about the delivery mechanisms and how CBTS goes about it. I think we've covered a lot on this, on the E911, the high availability, the engineering team that you have. Anything more to add on this?
Basically, you see some of the things around the circle there, like mass notifications. We run into certain situations, maybe it's educational, maybe it's government, maybe it's healthcare, that also would like additional mass notification tools. Like if there's a problem, and I hate to say it, but let's say an active shooter, and I want to be able to get an SMS text out immediately to large groups, et cetera. Those are some of the things we can layer in. There's a whole variety of things around call recording. Sometimes past people have thought about call recording as only part of a contact center. More and more folks are saying, no, I want call recording in everything that I do, particularly in legal environments, those kinds of things. So being able to layer on that, we talked about layering on some advanced reporting. Even really in disaster recovery plans, an automated, you see the word automated disaster recovery, that's part of the consulting that we do now. It's right. The new world is about working from anywhere, any device, any application.
Exactly.
Right? But to do that, then I'd better have the right disaster recovery plans in place as well. If I'm going to revamp all that, then I need to understand, okay, if I lose a physical, documented, ready to execute, et cetera. And these disaster recovery plans are not only data, but they're also security and now my collaboration and voice environments too. So those are the things that we'll sit down and talk about.
Tell me a little bit about WebEx. We only have 2 more minutes left.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about how WebEx fits into this discussion.
Absolutely. Cisco, like Cisco or not, they sold, I don't know how many tens of millions. But let's call it, there's probably some 30 or 40 million Cisco phones still connected to customer premise call managers today.
Yeah.
They are going to have to do something. Some of them will leave Cisco completely. Many of them don't. There's still reasons why they want to stay in that Cisco call control camp. Cisco has done a fabulous job taking the BroadSoft acquisition. We've always been a big call manager shop. Been doing it almost 20 years. We've been running BroadWorks or BroadSoft almost 20 years. Cisco bought BroadSoft about 5 years ago and has taken all that technology and moved it now into
Correct.
a technology called WebEx calling.
Yeah.
And it's, I would have never thought it was going to happen, to be honest with you. They've done a great job with it, right? And so what we become known as, you'll see here, we actually in last year won the WebEx Service Provider of the Year across all North America. So basically, we become known as any customer who wants to talk about their Cisco platform, their Teams platform, and oh, by the way, Avaya too, because we're a big Avaya shop, which are kind of three of the big commercial platforms. How do we help move that into some next generation solution? So, that's been good.
Well, thank you very much, Matt. Thanks for being a part
I do
of
have
this.
one more question.
Yes,
you want? No, let's not give up on this question.
Right.
One more question.
All right.
Is a session border controller crucial to the success of Microsoft Teams voice deployment? Also, can existing handsets be used?
Yeah,
You touched on that earlier, but if you could expand, that'd be great.
No, absolutely. Session border controller, they're crucial, but they're typically now in the service providers world, the people who are providing direct route or session border controllers. There still can be some need possibly for a session border controller locally, but it's kind of a corner use case. Early on, when people looked at Microsoft Teams, they thought they had to deploy session border controllers, get their own dial tone. You don't have to do that anymore. So no, really the answer is you don't need those. You let the cloud providers do that. And then on the question of appliances, of phones, yes, we could reuse some of your SIP phones. You're probably better off looking at certified devices now because they've got some additional features, but let's take a look at it.
It all comes down to evaluating the environment.
What it's going to work.
In totality.
Yep.
People still use physical phones? Soft phones.
Yes, they do sometimes.
It's fine, guys. Sorry.
All right.
You're allowed to use physical phones.
All right. All right. Thank you, Lance. We appreciate you putting this on.
Thank you, CBTS. Matt,
absolutely.
Pleasure as always.
Always fun. All right. Thank you.